Right, welcome to the Underdog Ecom Podcast, where two ecom brand founders are figuring out in real time.
Yeah, we're not here to preach. We're here in the thick of it, making mistakes, testing all sorts of ideas, and really sharing the journey of how we've been growing these brands from day zero. Hopefully you learn a little bit, perhaps come away with some ideas that save you time and money. And so if you're tired of the same glittery D2C advice from those 9-figure gurus, you're here in the right place.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Underdog Ecom listeners. We're in episode 21 on the 21st of August. That's got to be lucky. So we wanted to talk today about a little bit about like being creative creativity replacing capital, essentially. So like trying to just find creative ways to improve cash flow, to be able to cover expenses, inventory, all those type of things. And I think there's some interesting things like that you can do. I mean, it's some of those are worth more than the effort than others. But yeah, it'd be interesting to chat about it.
All right, let's dig in. Mark clip. It seems like it's possible. We're figuring this out as we go.
Yeah, it only took us 21 episodes. It's fine.
We're masters in podcast land. Cool. Yeah, how you doing, Jack?
Yeah, doing all right. I did a marathon, so maybe I mentioned that already, but I did. So yeah, I just about
after
feel
last
recovered
episode,
now.
You were like, I've just podcasted too much. I need to go run 40K or whatever the kilometers is.
No, to be honest, it was like a pre-middle age thing. I'm actually turning
pre-middle age.
Yeah, I'm turning 30 in a month from today. And I was just like, I feel like I needed to do something like to make myself feel younger. And so never again. It was horrible. Yeah. I mean, like, it was amazing. Wow. I went to Italy with my girlfriend to do it, which is not a far flight it's northern Italy, not a far flight from London. And we were going to visit her parents anyway, who are in Spain. So it was like not on the way, but not too far. And we did she did like a 10K at the same time, which was like, in hindsight, the better option because that was more chill and like, but yeah, so it was like really beautiful. Did it around a lake, and it was like mountain, like almost like the mountain. It was on the border between Switzerland and Italy. It's like the mountains behind, beautiful, but like 90 something degrees, like very hot. And I did not anticipate, because I thought it'd be like northern Italy, it wouldn't be that hot. It was very hot. And lots of hills. I thought if it's around the lake, it's got to be fairly flat around the lake, and it wasn't. It was like massive hills. And then I also got lost on the marathon. Like, I did an extra like couple of kilometers like halfway through, because I took not halfway through, like maybe a third of the way through, because it was like to the middle of the lake and back, and then middle of the lake and back again. So it wasn't like a loop. And so I got to the middle and thought I had to keep going, and I realized that was the turning round point. So I did but I went down the hill and I had to go. When I realised, I go back up the hill, and I was just like, this is the worst thing that could have possibly happened. Not to mention that we slept through it was like really badly organised. It was a really cool marathon, but it was badly organised. They changed the start date, the start time, the day before the marathon, but didn't email anyone. And so we just thought to like look it up online and check before the day before. And I was like, oh, it's starting at 8 a.m, not 9 a.m. now, which actually I was kind of relieved about, because I thought it'd be a bit cooler, it won't be quite as hot. But then we slept through our alarm, and it was a good half an hour away from where we were staying. So we were like rushing to get there on time. Jeez. And I was like, like the stress of just trying to make it on time for this marathon. And then literally got there. I was hoping to have like time to like just get in the mindset and everything. And I was like, go. It was literally 4 hours, and it was just 4 hours of like torture. But like after it was a good feeling. But I'm never going to do it again. That's for sure.
One and done.
Yeah.
One and done.
I'm not a long distance runner. That's for sure.
Crazy. That's like not a lot. You just ran a marathon. You're a long distance runner. Many people can do that. Especially like you didn't train very much, did you? Just like I'm gonna go do it. Whatever.
I mean, I knew I was going to do it from about February, and I booked it and everything like a long time in advance. And I was technically training every week, but the most I ever got up to was like, so what's a marathon? 26 miles, 42 kilometers. Yeah. I think I got up to 26 kilometers. That's maybe like 17 miles? Probably less, probably like 15 miles. It wasn't like I never got up to where I needed to get to properly run a marathon. So I was not prepared.
Jeez. I ran 5 miles on Saturday. It was my longest run ever, and I felt like I was going to die.
It's tough in the summer.
Welcome to getting old.
Yeah. It's,
wow. That's impressive. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dang.
Well, it was fun. I'm glad I got it out of the way. Even the training, it wasn't so much like the worry about doing the marathon. It was just like thinking about the training for it. And so I'm glad I don't have to think about that anymore.
There's a lot of, it's like you have to, I did a half marathon a bunch of years ago when I was a young whippersnapper, and you have to train so much. Like, it's like, oh wow, you run twice a week at least or whatever, long runs, like a couple hours on Saturday. I have absolutely not possible right now. Like, there's no way I would be able to do that unless I hired like a nanny or something. Cause I can understand. It's a lot of time. That's the thing about it. Like, that's why I found training so hard. I couldn't find the time. It was, I got up to 26 miles. I was like 2 hours running. I'm like, I don't have more than 2 hours to give. I didn't even, some days I didn't have that much time. So it was, it's hard. Yeah.
For you, even harder. Yeah.
That's crazy. Nice. Well, good work. Good work.
Yeah. What about you? How have things been?
Oh, I don't know. It's just like a roller coaster. It feels like I had like a couple weeks there where things were working and ads were working and revenue was up and stuff, and profitability was like meh, but it was like kind of working, and I was moving through inventory, and I had a game plan going forward, and I had this big launch for these shorts, and like I've been super focused on product the last couple months and making like really cool things and making really good things. Like, I've given the shorts to several different people, and they're like, oh, these are amazing, like these are fantastic shorts. Like, one person from Instagram compared them to Patagonia but better, basically, and I was like, wow, that's the highest compliment you could give me with you didn't even know, but that's like what I aspire to be. That's the poster behind me. And they flopped. I sold and I did all the things. I made videos, I've spent hours and hours making what I thought were like good videos and like interesting videos and stuff. Turns out you just have to use silly hooks, I guess, or whatever, or like dumb things on, I don't know how to solve that, but I did all the hype. I did like the pre-launch. I set like a launch time and date, which I never do, and then I sold like 5 of them. And I think there's a bunch of issues to unpack there, but it was deflating to say the least. And then on top of that, all my ads a couple days ago I turned off all my ads except for bid caps, because I was like, even the ads that were working for the last 6+ months that were holding my brand up stopped working for whatever reason, like dropped to ROAS of like 0.5. And I was just hemorrhaging cash. I was like, I can't spend $300 a day for $300 in sales. There was a day a couple days ago where I got 1 sale, and I was like, is my website broken? Like, I kept checking it and stuff, and it wasn't. I don't know if it's just like a lull between seasons or something, but it's super frustrating.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're definitely like low this month, and I think every August I've always felt like it's like just feels like I've just hit like the very bottom of a curve, So I don't know.
Look at last August.
Yeah, I know. I think I did that the other day as well. It's my August is probably worse than January.
Wow.
I think generally. So it's tough. I just think that people are still away, like going on like holiday, still things like that. They haven't got quite back into like back to work, back to school. Well, I mean, back to school is probably happening now, but like I still think it's not like, unless you're in that niche of back to school, I just think people aren't thinking about that sort of stuff yet, and they've got a lot on their mind other than that, and so I just think it is a tough time to make a lot of sales.
Yeah, that's fair. It's wholesale's also been down like crazy, and like the other thing that added to all that stress was like, I just made an offer to my 1099 shipping person who's been a contractor 1099 for over a year. She's been solid, and I think she's got good potential in the future. Doesn't have a background in any of this, so like I was like, I don't know, like the headcount people, experts say like 1 million in rev per one full-time employee. I'm not there. And so it's like, oh man, did I make a mistake in offering her W-2? She accepted it. She's been working for 30 plus hours a week for me for the last year, because like that's just how operationally complex, and it's like mostly warehouse work. She does probably spend 5 to 10 hours a week now doing video work for me for the last like 6 months, and I'm training her on that, and she's not like a natural content creator or anything like that, but I've been working that to try and like improve her ROI, so she's shipping orders, but she's like, can help me bring in more revenue. And I think that'll be beneficial. I want to loop her into wholesale and stuff, but I'm also like, man, this is the wrong time for sales to drop off because mentally I'm in not a great headspace. And then this person accepts it. I'm like, I have to pay for her now. It's not like a huge change. I gave her a little bit of a pay bump because that's what she wanted. And there'll be more admin costs and stuff because she's a W-2, but like, it's not a huge increase at the end of the day in terms of dollars to the from the bottom line. And it felt like the right move, but it's just like, man, I feel like when it rains, it pours, and I really needed the shorts to be a big win, and they weren't. And now I'm like staring at these huge funding bills where I'm restocking all my hats for this winter. I've got like 2 jackets that are in production that should do super well, but I'm like scared to finance them and I don't have any cash left to put down to the POs. So yeah, today I'm launching I already launched it technically, an anniversary sale, because I started the shop like 7 years ago. So it's a big 7-year anniversary sale, and I'm hoping it does super well. I tried to pull out some more like, I don't know, advanced marketing things where it's like a tiered discount thing, and then I'm going to refund 7 orders for free, which I saw a couple brands doing, like Instant Hydration does, and a few other people, and I think that will help, just build the sale or whatever and get people interested. And I'm going to throw some $7 or like throw 7 gift cards into orders as well, and it'll be over 2-week span, so it's like a small percentage of orders, but I think those little things will help boost the sale, and sales generally do pretty good. Like I've noticed that a lot of people just wait for sales, unfortunately, with apparel.
It's tough.
And yeah, so we'll see how that does. I'm holding on to that, be like, all right, well, this better be it to make enough revenue to fund these POs, because my back's a little against the wall, it feels like, again.
Yeah. With your employee now, I'm interested because, like, do you think that part of the reason why you're still like fulfilling in-house is because you don't want to let her down? Because the reason I ask is because, like, I know that's part of the reason that I still fulfill in-house. We've spoken about this before on the podcast, but like, I know that part of the reason I'm not I haven't moved it to a fulfillment center is because I know this is the wrong thing. Like, you shouldn't think like this, but I know that part of the reason I haven't done it is because I know this is a good it's a flexible money earner for a friend of mine now who I don't want to let down, and it's not working. So I don't know.
Someone told me the other day I'm too nice of a person to be CEO. It sounds like you are too. Basically, some of that is true, I think, but also I am thinking about this and thinking for the future. Like, I think she really has a lot of loyalty to the brand and is very she's done things that she's gone above and beyond in terms of effort and stuff. And I'm thinking, like, in the next couple of years, maybe she'll be in charge of the warehouse and someone will be working underneath her, kind of thing. Right. Or we offload everything to a 3PL and she still works for me and we, like, scale up her hours, because that was the majority of her hours, but she does a bunch of other things, because there's so many like little things where it's like, oh shoot, I've got 10 different shirts, I need to monitor those and reorder them, but that takes like so much time off my plate. And it's all these like little things where my VA doesn't have as much hours as she used to, and I was kind of training her on all this sort of thing, logistics and operations, and so that is falling back on my plate, and it's very time consuming. And then I'm running out of, like, yesterday I got a PO in from a shop that they don't really look at my inventory numbers, even though I have them on my wholesale site. They just throw in POs at my face, and they're my biggest account, so I try and keep things as nice for them as possible, but there's like 4 different things that are out of stock, and I'm like, oh, had I been better about keeping my evergreen shirts in stock, it would not be out of stock. And that happens like every time they send me a PO, because it's for 300 different items, well, 300 units, but like 30 different items or something like that, and so the likelihood that one of those is out of stock is very high.
Yeah.
So long story short, I guess, to answer the question, is like, I think there will be future potential for her down the road to do other things, and possibly, I do think shipping in-house is, I don't know. We've talked about this ad nauseum, perhaps, but I mean, yesterday someone asked me about donations, and it's like, I don't think I could get donations to them and I know that's not really like a revenue, it's not like a huge revenue stream or whatever, donating stuff, but it does get the name and the brand out there in the community. And I have people hitting me up like every month, it seems like, for donation stuff, and it's not really possible to get it shipped to them in time for their events typically. I'm also working on doing more custom products for different companies. I've got some hats in production for another company right now, and doing more of like the white label kind of offering merch as a service, and eventually would like to be able to ship stuff for people. And I've got some conversations working there. So I think it's like, we'll see if I regret this in a couple of years, but like turning into a 3PL of sorts is not necessarily in my vision, but I've done it in the past for a small brand, and it seemed on a small scale to be worth it from a money and time standpoint. So,
I think what I was thinking about is like, because when you mentioned about the retailers buying tons of different stuff, and they don't really look at, and I've seen that as well. Like I had, I think I mentioned this before, but like, because we're in a production run at the moment, I tried to get a few retailers on board with it to basically pre-buy, and actually surprisingly did. But I sent them the exact inventory of what we were producing, like in terms of like what colors, and they just ordered completely disrespectful, like just not disrespectful, like completely, they just like ordered complete different thing, like completely different, like, and I sent them like 3 times that, like exactly what we were making, like, what we, and they just didn't pay any attention to it. And I thought about it. I remember actually I was chatting to my dad actually about it. I was like, what do I do? Do I just try and make these, like add to the production order and just make these for them, or do I just say no, we're not? And he was like, no, you can't keep doing that. This is why you've got to just say like, this is not available. And I was worried about they would just like pull out right then and there, because they'd be like, no, we want this. And if you're not going to make, and it was just a color difference, but sometimes they're like, it was like between blue and green, and we're coming out with this new green, like sort of mint green color, and they wanted the old blue, and I want to prioritize this new mint green color, but they want to just order what they've ordered before. And eventually I just said, no, I'm just going to like say, no, this is what's available. And they ended up just going with it eventually. So sometimes, I don't know, it's hard, but I think that you sometimes do have to put your foot down, so to speak, and just and just say like, this is not available. And it's really hard. It's so hard to say. And it's the same thing I've had with like international orders and things as well. It's really hard to say no to customers. It's like one of the hardest things is you almost as a founder are willing to take a loss in order to like get it in their hands, sort of thing. And it doesn't usually work out. I mean, like, I don't know, wholesale is different, but I just mean like I'm trying to be more like that myself.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct, where it's like, especially when the wholesaler is like waving this cash in front of your face and you're like, I'm a tiny bootstrapped brand, I need every single penny I can get. But it does add complications and makes things trickier, and I think you're right to like stick to your guns or whatever, like, stick to the company and uphold what you're working on more, and just kind of like value that than their dollars they're waving at your face. I find this all the time when customers ask about like when a product's getting restocked, or like one example would be women's t-shirts. I have made limited number of women's t-shirts because there's just not enough people, and people always ask for them. And it seems like I just am like, the 4 people that asked me last year, okay, I really need to make them just for them. And and then I do it, and they don't sell as well as I would want or expect. And then the same with like color restocks and size and t-shirt restocks and stuff. People are always asking. And I think I'm just more apt to like bend to their desire or try and cater to them, when it's like, no, actually, from a marketing standpoint, FOMO is good, and being out of stock is good because it increases scarcity, and that's those sorts of ideas. But also just sticking to the business MO, and like, no, this is our operational like release schedule and those sorts of things. Like, don't deviate and don't cater to something that doesn't necessarily make the most sense for the business just because you want to be nice.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, exactly. Yeah. Well, shall we dive into what we were going to talk about? Which
I'll drop a marker down.
Yeah, there we are.
Cool.
So this episode we wanted to talk about. Well, I wanted to talk about. I was thinking it'd be cool to talk about like. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, these headphones are not cooperating very well. Oh my goodness. And apparently that triggers loud music. Riverside's very soft. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's granola is open or something, or anyways, okay, so we'll probably have to cut some of this, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. Our whole strategy. Okay, so I am now ready, I think.
So yeah, the reason this idea came to me for this is because I was actually listening to his name is Monish Pabrai. He's like a Indian American like investor guy. He used to work for like Warren Buffett and stuff. He's been on like a ton of podcasts. I've listened to his stuff a lot actually because he's a really interesting guy. But he talks about this like creativity that replaces capital sort of thing. Obviously, he gives like big examples, like, you know, famously Richard Branson, when he wanted to start Virgin Atlantic, the airline, he needed to like lease he wanted to lease a jet, and obviously they wouldn't give it to him and stuff like that. And he basically worked it out so that as long as because people were booking flights 4 months in advance, and he would make sure the fuel was paid for a month after the flight, and it was all this sort of stuff about like being creative to eventually like he technically started Virgin Atlantic with no money because he re-engineered the cash flow and was creative with it to make it kind of work. And I thought it was like really interesting for e-commerce because I think we're such a cash flow dependent like business and so an industry in general. And so I've kind of just been thinking about it myself in terms of like whether, you know, what cool ways to do that. And I've seen it a little bit myself where I was recently able to get, and some of it's luck, to be honest. I mean, like with getting some retailers buying onto like the next PO, and then also I had a investment company in the US who ordered 100 and something bags like with their logo on it, just for like to give as way to clients, which again just added that as part of the production run, charged them up front, and you know, bit of like design on our side and things like that to kind of put where their logos go and everything. But it was fairly simple, and like, I mean, that was more luck than anything. But I feel like kind of engineering ways to kind of like as in place of capital, because I think you and I obviously, and many brands struggle with that, is like the capital to fund the next purchase order. And I'm just trying to think about like, you know, interesting ways that can be implemented.
That's really interesting. I think that is such a hard thing to do, to run an ecom brand without like a lot of cash flow or not have VC backings, you know, be bootstrapped and stuff, and freaking out over the next PO that you have to fund somehow. It is really tricky. I think it's definitely worth a deep dive into. I'm curious, like, as you were thinking through all of this, did you come up with any ideas or wanted to brainstorm out thoughts that might apply to your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I've tried to do it a little bit this year, and it's because I've been thinking about it ongoing. And part of that is like, I've got a bit of a small team who helps with things like email and things like that. And I've started to outsource that a little bit. And that's kind of helped to cover their costs. And so that,
great example.
I suppose, I think, I don't know whether it's a long-term thing, because eventually I want to kind of, I want Cancer to be able to sustain itself, and I don't want to like fake that, so to speak. But at the same time, I think it has helped us enormously, because I've got 4 people, I think, helping me now on different things. I'm still very much like doing a lot of it on myself, but like still getting like a lot of support that I didn't have, because I'm able to fund it a little bit through some of the things. And so that's kind of one of them. The other thing is more on the side of like focusing on creativity as a revenue driver. So like I don't think it's the same thing, but one thing I've been trying to focus on more is if I can take away less, like more administrative things away from me, and then focus on something that I think potentially, at least for my brand, I feel like I'm maybe more not skilled, but like just more in the right place to do, which is probably sell more bags. And I think that's one of those things where I think that if there's anything that, say, if you start your own brand, that you should be able to do better than most people, is sell your own product. And I think, or get better at selling your own product, right? And And so I've been thinking more about like the content side of things, and maybe I should be spending more time on that, and not spending so much time, at the back end of Shopify, not spending so much time, just kind of not, I won't say messing around with things, but I just feel like there's so many things that pull your attention. And I think that sometimes, like, if you just put it down to like sheer numbers, which I think is kind of the idea of kind of creativity in terms of capital, you're kind of just saying like, you're just re-engineering the numbers. And I think it's very similar with when you're running a small brand, you kind of have to prioritize. And I think that if you almost like look at it from a numbers perspective, like what activity can I do that has the most impact on a positive return, it's like, oh right, well, if I had to choose, probably like I need to put more content out. Like I need to be putting more content out, or I need to be maybe I need to getting more retailers, getting more people, because who can I really get other than me to like pitch it to them that they should buy our bags? Well, only I can do that, really, at the moment anyway. So I think that's what I'm trying to focus more on. It's like I think that kind of, what am I uniquely able to do or creative at, versus spending a lot of my time on other things that are a little bit just kind of 1%, quarter of a percent change and swing one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, let's take some bigger swings, like be more resourceful, focus on the higher ROI things. I think that's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in the past on here too.
Yeah.
Storytelling plays into all of this. You're talking about content. I feel like these, the words storytelling and community and content get thrown around so much these days in marketing. But it's like that's where things are leaning, and it can definitely be frustrating at times, but also like when it does play out, like it can play out really well. We've seen it with like Dad Gang and other brands that are out there where they've been able to build that like following and stuff behind them, and it's not necessarily big budget things, but it's kind of a lot of, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's a lot of like world building. It's like, let's go be where our people are and cater to those people who are our people, and not really worry about, what's the classic cliche phrase is like, if you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. And it's like really leaning into those areas that make the most sense and just trying to be as resourceful as possible. I think those are good examples. I think I like that, where you've been able to, train up these freelancers and teach them how to do things on your own brand, and then have them do things for other people. I think, a good example of that would be Zach Stuck with Hollow, his sock company that has exploded the last couple of years. Like that was like a stealth brand or whatever that he launched under his agency. And so he's got, a bunch of super good experts in various areas of marketing, and being able to apply them to his own brand, take those learnings and kind of apply it through to the agency. And then like, it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, or this like kind of osmosis where one side learns from the other side, the agency and the brand, and they sort of improve. It's extremely difficult to do, I would say, also, because it's like then you're also pulled in a bunch of different directions. I have a few micro examples from myself, as like my Shopify developer side, and then my brand side, and there are some things that have like permeated between the two, but it's also just like, I also feel like I'm totally strapped for time. I think that's the hardest. It's a really good concept, creativity replacing capital. As with everything, the execution takes a lot of time to think through and be thoughtful, and it's like, how can we really apply this? And I was thinking through how it works for my brand, and I feel like I've got some examples where I've done that sort of thing in the past, but also has it had a positive ROI in terms of time. And I think that's where, being a small scrappy brand, it has to have maximum ROI based on the time. Because so for example, I've got this, I call it the RDub app, but it's basically an app that's very much a sister to the brand, to the shop, where people can report if the mountain's out from their location. It all ties into the mantra of the brand, is the mountain out. And I launched like a year or two ago, maybe it's a year ago, mountain out flash deals. So it's like, if the mountain's out, you get a flash deal, sign up for the text list. There's this relationship between the app that people can report on and the brand, and so there's a tie-in, and it's all kind of this like building a universe around this shared love for the mountain. Building the app was a ton of work. My brother did a lot of the heavy lifting. He's a developer as well. And so this was a couple of years ago. We spent, probably over 100 hours easily on it and built this website. And it could use, there's a bunch of holes and things to plug. It's like basically another side project on top of a side project on top of a side project that could be a full-time job for someone. But I don't have the hours for it. And so it's not a great example of being very scrappy and being creative with things, but also like not taking on a whole nother thing and trying to maximize the ROI for a small amount of time. But it's like those types of examples where I think it's like build out the community, build out like the universe, the world that you're playing in. And it's I don't know if there's any other brands out there that have a similar type thing. And that's my idea with it was to kind of cross over, and there's like a drop down so people can click into this apparel shop, and eventually I want to do like limited apparel drops through it, build out a whole like leaderboard, have people get points for doing different types of things, gamify it quite a bit, get like deals on the shop, have special launches, get like like a top 5 reporter special sticker or something. All the things, all the ideas, but ideas are cheap.
Yeah, no, but I think it does also start from understanding, and I've always struggled with this, but understanding where you're sort of uniquely positioned to, like what you're best at essentially. Because I mean, there's other examples of brands where it's like a one founder and like 5 agencies, and and I can understand the theory behind that as well, because what they're doing is they're saying like, I want to spend my time on what I'm good at. I don't want to waste my time on things I'm not good at.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't want to have fixed costs, so I'm going to take on, these agencies. Yes, I'm going to have to liaise between them, and there's definitely a lot of like, I imagine like getting them to communicate and everything is hard. But the upside is that that founder can, or founders can like focus on what they're uniquely good at. If they're, for example, if they're like a venture-backed thing, they can focus on raising money. If they're, if they're really good at just like wholesale or connecting, or they're very connected, they can build those deals while the all the digital stuff is happening. And like, there's just different things, I think. But it starts with that, and then you can say like, well, now I've got this particular skill, or I'm good at this, or this is what I like doing. How can I leverage that? And that might be leveraging just to grow your business, but also might be leveraging saying like, for example, in your case, like with being a very good developer, is there something that can be leveraged there? Like you said with the app, it might be, obviously you've got your freelance business as well. It could be an argument, I don't know if it's necessarily the case, but it could be the argument where it's leveraging the two to grow each other. So it could be that the Rainier watch is like the pedestal of showing like what you're able to do from a development side, as like a tier, like this is how good we can do it. But at the same time, it's also an opportunity for like, for example, apps and things like that to show like how well executed they can be on your store and things like that. So there might be not necessarily like a payback in terms of payment, but it might be you get all that stuff at a discounted rate or for free, because things like that I think is, I mean, sometimes it's worth thinking about and sometimes it's not. But yeah, I don't know, it is the margins are so thin. So I think when you can find, and I think it has to be big swings as well, because there's like typical things like showing other offers on your checkout page, and it's like, well, yeah, but unless you got thousands of orders, it's really going to make no difference, But it's kind of finding those big swings, I think.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things inside the conversation is and we've talked about this, at length, because it's very important for underdogs and folks that are running their tiny businesses to lack. I've fallen prey to it. I've lacked focus, and I've, installed the Disco app years ago, which was a different name before they rebranded to Disco. I don't even remember what it was, but so foolish. It was like a post-purchase cross-selling between different brands sort of thing. And it was like, who is buying from Caraway and Rainier Watch? Like, silly. Especially with the tiny order volume, like 20 orders a month or something ridiculous back then. But those types of ideas where it's like, oh yeah, maybe this is a creative approach that will help build the brand, but so it falls kind of under that question mark of like the ideas that we're talking about here, but it doesn't when you gauge it by like the ROI versus the time, and like, does it make sense for that? Is it like a little needle mover, like a 1% mover? Yeah, probably. Same with a lot of things out there. There's so many 1% movers, but those are not applicable unless you're at like the 7, 8, 9, 10 figure mark or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It needs to be the big, like, you know, instead of focusing on a post-purchase upsell or something, for me, it should be, I mean, this is a real life example where there's a volunteer experience at Mount Rainier National Park coming up through the nonprofit that I partner with quite a bit, and going up there with them seems like that is like a bigger swing in capturing content and like kind of telling a story and building the community, something like that, or leading a group hike or a trail cleanup. Those types of bigger things, they're hard, you know, it's not easy. I feel like none of this, it's just like, it's like a pyramid, right? Like, the very, very, very good ideas are few and far between, and it takes a lot of concentrated effort to find those. And once you find those, push the gas pedal, of course. But there's a lot of ideas that it's kind of like swing and miss, or hit a single or whatever, to use a baseball analogy. And it's like, that doesn't, you know, a bunch of those will add up over time. I remember years ago when the order volumes were way lower, I would, on the back of sticker orders, they're on envelopes, I would sketch out a little mountain on everyone. Wow. Just as it was kind of a win-win, actually. I thought it was a good idea. Maybe this is a good example, actually. It was helping me draw the mountain better and like work on my drawing skills, which I'm not a great drawer, which is ironic, leading an apparel company where I design a lot of this stuff. And so I was practicing drawing specifically the mountain, which is, you know, the focal point of the brand, but also customers loved it, this hand-drawn mountain on the back, and they looked really cool. I should probably have some examples here. And I would get comments from customers all the time. Like, one lady told me one time that she collected them because they were so cool and had like a stack of them at her house. And it didn't make a lot of sense at the time. It was one of those like, do things that don't scale, because it was, I don't know, 10 orders a week or something like that. They were all sticker orders. So it's a $4 AOV. I'm spending at least 10 seconds sketching on the back of it with a little thanks. But it was like a value add. It was like something that other brands can't really do. And it really, like, I think helped build the universe in some ways. And a lot of those customers are still around today. And I certainly wouldn't be able to do that today without my hand falling off. But it was cool for in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the other thing I was thinking about is, I wanted to kind of run this by you, see what you think, because like, so I'm working with a second supplier, like a second manufacturer now, and so I've actually negotiated slightly better terms with them. So instead of it being, I think, 30% upfront, 70% before delivery, so like on completion of production, which is not great because then you wait 4 or 5 weeks for it to arrive. You've paid for everything up front already. Then you've paid 100%. You've waited a few weeks, and then you haven't sold anything. So it's tough. But a lot of manufacturers work on those terms. The second manufacturer I've got, they seem to be a bit more flexible and kind of willing. And I think because we're small in comparison to some of their other brands they work with, it's kind of like, well, this is not a big deal for us. It's not like they're, ordering, thousands and thousands of yards of different materials and stuff. They're having to hold this, and like no one's paid for it yet. Obviously, that's a difficult situation. But in relation to that, we're smaller, and so I think we've got a deal where it's like on actually arrival. It's like arrival into the US. It's when we pay them that 70%. But one thing I've been thinking about a lot is going back to them and saying, okay, this is the pricing you've given us. This is what we negotiated on. Are you interested in us paying you 5, 10, 15% on that, in above that, but you'll give us till, instead of paying you in the balance in October or November, we'll pay you in January. And so like you go from like a situation of having to pay everything up front before the Q4 to having got all the money in before Q4 before you pay the remaining 70% or something like that. So I'm trying to think a bit more about that, but I kind of swing back and forth between what's better, margin or cash flow.
That is $1 million question. Basically, I think positive cash flow cycle is like one of the bigger unlocks that you hear, like, the huge brands. I forgot the name of that t-shirt brand that has blown up or whatever. True Classic or something. Yeah. So I feel like they talk about this all the time, where it's like the positive cash flow cycles and getting paid after you've already sold the inventory and stuff like that. And it plays out sometimes with customer pre-orders, which we've talked about before, which can be a disaster, and I'm not sure I'd recommend, even though I've done it many times. I think cash flow is better for the stage that we're at right now. And I think that is exactly the strategy that I've heard other really smart people talk about, where it's like, yeah, pay the extra percentage. I don't know what the calculation would be. I mean, maybe you can play around with the GPT to see like what would, in terms of the actual math, like what would make the most sense. Is it 5% for an additional 2 months of cash flow float or whatnot?
I guess you got to compare against a loan. I guess if you compare against a loan, because what the type of loans that we would get, what does it compare? Yeah,
I'm very curious. You should have it do the calculations and tell me what those numbers are, because I'm looking at inventory financing and stuff right now, and it's like percentages are 20 to 30% or something like that in terms of interest, and that's lower than like a Shopify loan or something, a Shopify capital loan, or like a daily revenue based loan, but still not great. But also it's like, as a tiny brand without much liquidity or capital that can be liquid, you kind of have to play the hand that you're dealt in some ways. But I have a feeling that will be a better rate depending on what you offer them and stuff. I was thinking,
yeah, because I was looking at financing loan stuff, because we've got cash in the bank, because obviously, but like some to pay for like deposit, but it's almost like, I don't want to like draw it basically down to zero on paying off this whole, this next production run, and then have no money and like be struggling. And so, it's one of those things where it's like, again, even that question, like what's more important? Is it better to be like near zero in the bank account but not have any loans, or is it better to have loans and to have a bit more positive cash in the account? So it's like that question as well. But I was looking at that, and I think I was looking at like Shopify Capital, because they have like the fixed monthly payments now, which make the APR generally, well, at least last time I put it into ChatGPT, it was like quite a bit better. It was maybe like worked out at maybe like a 30 or 25, 30% APR or something, which is cool. Which is, it's not great, but it's a lot better than I think it has been in the past. So I was like looking at that, but I definitely, I need to compare that against like I don't know if they would accept it, but I have a feeling they might be open to it, because, I would potentially be if I were them, because for them, it's probably not a huge risk, but it's, better margins for them, more money. And if they can like handle the risk over like 2 months more, they're going to make more money. So, and it might be something that I do regularly with them. I think the key is also to make sure that you negotiate the right time, because if I'd gone to them before I had any pricing from them and was like, oh, would you be interested in potentially increasing your prices for more float? They would just like increase them before they even got to me. So it's like, you got to be careful.
I would say like it all. So I think it is a good idea to play that out. It depends, I think, on your sell through. Like if you're pretty confident that these will sell through pretty quickly, the products that you're ordering, then definitely go for it. I think this is all like very relevant to what I'm working on right now, is like funding winter inventory and stuff, and trying to figure out that exact question of like, do I drain the bank or do I fund it with financing? And some of the products that I'm working on, I think because some products that I've had recently that have flopped, I've been scared that like, oh no, what if they don't do well? Like I'm still in sort of finding the product market fit realm, because it's an apparel brand, like because I have different product categories and collections and stuff. Like I don't have one single sort of category. Like that's the question mark for me as I play this out. Like, do I fund this? But I don't know if it's going to sell well, which makes it, I feel like, will add more stress to everything. But if I have pretty confident that it's going to sell through quickly, then I think it makes sense to fund it. Do you think your products will have high sell-through rates?
Yeah, I think the other thing that makes it a little bit easier is being much more conservative on ordering, which is not easy as well, because I think people, one thing I hear a lot of the time is like, oh, it's always better to be, out of stock than too much stock. And yes, that's true, but there are so many constraints around that prevent you from doing that. Like a supplier saying, well, I'm sorry, you can't just order 200 of those, you need to order 500. Like we're just not going to make it if you order 200. Or like I've had before where like a supplier goes, well, we can make 200 for you if you want, but we'll charge you as if they were 500. And it's like, well, I might as well make 500 then. So, you know, it sounds, or like I might as well like 1,000. You know, so it sounds like it's good, but it's hard in retrospect. But I'm trying to be more conservative with stock so that, and I think that's another thing. It's very tough to be conservative with stock going into like Black Friday, Q4, because it's a big sales period, and you're thinking, I really don't want to miss out, because that money is going to fund January, February, you know, all that sort of stuff. So it's really tough, but I'm trying to be more conservative. And I think when you're more conservative, you can be more sure of like, okay, I know I'm going to sell this stuff. But it's never easy.
I agree. I always fall. It's a really hard conversation, and I think I would I'm telling myself more than I'm telling you. Always go conservative. Always go MOQ unless you know it's like a good product market fit kind of thing. More applicable for apparel than like your category, I think. But I will say also, circling back to the factories, I forgot to mention this earlier. I think that conversation and that sort of idea about having them basically finance the inventory is really, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it also is really easy for them to do because they have access to a lot larger capital pools that they can draw on, where they can go to the bank and be like, hey, we want to get XYZ funded, and we want to borrow this at this, and the bank will be like, oh yeah, sure, you're a factory doing gazillions a month kind of thing, totally fine. So I've heard that from people that are in the larger pools than I am, kind of thing. And so I think that will make a lot of sense. And now I'm thinking about the same idea and going back to a couple of my suppliers, and I've tried it with one of my suppliers in the past and they haven't been interested, but I think I've got another one that might actually, where it's the same sort of situation actually, where I'm a small, piece of the puzzle for them. And so they have been very lenient in the past with things, just because they're like, oh yeah, this guy's ordering, a couple thousand or whatever, 10,000 or whatever it is. Like, that's nothing for us considering all of the other POs that we're putting through. So whatever, it's cool. Which is really nice and advantageous, especially because it was an introduction from a third-party relationship. So I feel like there's equity in the relationship that they had built with this supplier, and now I'm kind of leaning into that, which is really handy.
Yeah, it's really good. I think there's a lot to be said about thinking creatively about this type of stuff, because I've even thought about am I making the mistake of trying to produce 3 times a year? Like last year we did 3 or 4 production runs, smaller, each one smaller, and then this year it's gonna be 3, and it's hard because when you split it into 3, what happens is that everything's a smaller order. It's harder for them to forecast, to get the right materials in, everything. It's really hard. If I'd done one big order but maybe tried to split it into 3 shipments throughout the year, if I'd managed to I wonder if it works out better for them. So if you go to them and say, look, I'm not going to order 3 times this year, I'm going to give you an order for the year. If you're organized about it, obviously, and if you know what you're going to launch and stuff like that, and it's harder that way because then you have to be really you have to have your product development already, and it's really hard. But if you can do that and go to them and say, well, you can produce more, which is going to be more efficient for your time, but will you help me out, and we'll pay you, in installments throughout the year, or and so that you can kind of hedge your bets that way. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think what's interesting too is with this creative approach is not, I came at it thinking about a lot of the marketing applications that it could be done, and how do I, make better content or whatever. How do I, aim to build up my universe in terms of the marketing and building the brand and that sort of thing. But there's other lenses that can be applied in, there's so many facets to running an e-com brand where it's like, oh yeah, you can apply this creative aspect and lens to funding inventory and operations and all sorts of stuff. And I think it's very important for small brands that are our sizes. You have to really think outside the box a lot of times, because and I think it's even getting harder nowadays, because with, at least for brands here, the tariff situation and not knowing around that, I think that the economy's not doing well, and I think I've seen a pullback in consumer spending, and so it's going to get harder and harder, I think, for e-com brands. I think the glory days of e-com is over. And I was talking, this is a whole nother conversation, but I was talking to a few other brand owners and stuff about how Instagram kind of feels dead for small brands unless you're doing tons of ads. And they're trying to push everyone into ads, and they're trying to turn their platform into TikTok. So basically none of your followers, all your equity that you've built into followers, which I know no one says like put equity into that and build up your email list instead, but like that's just naturally what you kind of have to do as you play the game, is like you focus on that a little bit, and that's kind of dead because the algo only feeds stuff to everyone and doesn't feed to followers. And so it's just hard, I guess, is what it's hard for small brands, and it's going to get harder.
And interestingly on that, the thing also I think is what's happening with like social media in general is that there's so much creator content now and brand content that the users themselves are posting very little because they aren't going to see what their friends are doing. The way like traditionally social media started is like to know what your friends are up to and to chat with them and to be, it's telling you what social media is a definition of it. So, but now when you go on go on Instagram, I mean, you see like rarely see a friend's post or something, partly because they're not posting, and secondly because there's so much like creator brand content. And I know we're part of that whole thing, but I think that's part of the problem, is that it's so saturated with that content. That's why like I think a lot of like social media, like actual social media, like friend to friend, or contact to contact, is happening through DMs and through WhatsApp and all this stuff, because that is the only way. And I'm sure that people, us included, will find our way into those channels at some point. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's tough. Organic is really hard. I think that the landscape's always changing. So you have to be creative.
Landscape is like, you're like standing on moving sand, it feels like. And at any given second, the waves are going to come rock your world. So fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like that's a pretty good wrap on creativity and replacing capital with creativity and kind of like thinking outside the box and stuff. Do you have anything to add or anything we didn't cover? I know you came to the table with that topic, so it was a good one. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure. I think the only thing I've also been thinking about on that is, to finish, is like, I think you have to ask the question. I think that's what it comes down to. I think that's what I've been trying to realize, is that sometimes you can not, like for example with the asking the supplier, I don't know if that's going to work out, but if I don't ask, I'll never know. Just like, I think that's the thing, is you've got to just keep knocking on the door and keep asking the question, because it opens opportunities to do things better, whether it's leveraging better payment terms or whatever. Some people will be willing to take that chance on you. I think it's definitely not always going to work out. Most of the time it probably won't work out, but I think those like 1 or 2 times it does can make a big difference. So
that's good. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening. Find us on your favorite platform. Give us 5 stars if you liked the episode. Let us know if you didn't. You can shoot us an email or leave a comment on the YouTubes. We're on every streaming platform out there. Good luck, underdogs. We know that you need it.